Okay, I'm going to try to do an educational video, um, just on the basics, um, the setup for decoding with astrology. So first thing to do is to use this website, astro-seek.com, and then click horoscopes, and then scroll down to the third option from the bottom, traditional astrology, and then put in the date and the time and the place, and then you always want to have Placidius houses, and then have this setting to be tropical, and then the next one for terms Egyptian, and then you're going to calculate your chart. And then, so this is a chart for the Anaheim game today that I decoded with just um, numbers. Um, so the first thing to know is that the chart turns the clock, or sorry, the chart is turning clockwise. So that's the sky moving east to west. But even though the chart is turning clockwise, the planets themselves are moving counterclockwise. So it looks like they're moving clockwise or east to west when you're looking at them, but their path is actually backwards and counterclockwise. So right here we have the moon at 24 degrees. The next one is going to be 25 degrees, and it's going to be moving up closer to the top. Each dash, like darker dash, is 5 degrees. So right here, this prenatal syzygy, it's called, this black one, this black circle with the 1 degree in it, it's right at the beginning of Scorpio, and it's moving up to the 30 degree where the moon is at 24 degrees. So that shows you that it's moving counterclockwise. Okay, so then you want to assign the teams to their respective houses, and the favorite is always going to be the first house. And it's really good when the favorite is also the home team, because the first house represents the home, or the 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 self, and then the seventh house represents the other. So that's why you put the dog in this house, and then the 10th house represents the actions. So we give the first house the 10th house for their actions, and then when you do what's called turning the chart, the seventh house becomes the first house of the team, that's the dog, and then the 10th house from the first house, the 10th from the seventh is the fourth house. So you would count one. So if you created the seventh house, turn it into the first house, that's called turning the chart, and then counted to 10, you would have the the 10th from the seventh. So you go, so it's 7 becomes 1, and then 8, 2, and then 9, 3, 10, 4, 11, 5, 12, 6, 7 is 1, which would make sense, right? And then 8 is 2, 9 is 3, and 10 is 4. So that's called the 10th from the 7th. Okay, and then so when looking at the houses, you got to realize where the front door of the house is. So the first house here, the ascendant, the dark ascendant line, that's the first door, the front door, sorry, of the first house. And that's how you assign the signs that are going to be in the house. So the front door of the ascendant, or of the first house, the ascendant has Taurus in it. So the first house has Taurus, and then the second house, the front door, its line is going into Gemini, and so on. So the fourth house has Leo in it, right? Because the front door is the dark line, and then the subsequent lines are the front doors of each house. Okay, so then the favorite is going to be the first house and the 10th house. So the first house has Taurus in it, ruled by Venus. So the planet that represents that team is going to be Venus. That's its main significator. And then its secondary significator is going to be the Saturn, because the 10th house's front door is in Aquarius, and Saturn happens to be in its own sign. And so that's the significator for the first house. So for the favorite, I mean. And so the favorite will have Venus and Saturn, and then the dog will have its front door of the seventh house is in Scorpio, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars. So Mars is going to be the main significator for the dog, and then the 10th from the 7th is Leo, and the front door is in Leo, right? The front door of the first house is in Leo, so that's the sun. So the sun, or so the dog is going to have the sun and Mars as its significators. Okay, and then the rules for the game I can go more into later, but this game here is the Anaheim game I just said. So I decoded for the Tampa Bay Lightning to win. And hockey, they don't start right at the start time. That's what's so great about baseball is when it says it's starting at such a time, it starts at that time. Like there's no delay. Usually these games in hockey, they start um, like 15 minutes later. So I still haven't figured out like if I should give the birth chart the actual time of the puck drop or the time assigned to the birth of the game, like that what they tell you it is. It shouldn't matter too much. It can matter because like see the moon here, um, it's not on the DSC, but in about 2 minutes, in about I would say in about 8 minutes, it's going to be right on the DSC. Because here's another thing to note is that the sky is turning at a degree every 4 minutes. So the ascendant is at 2250. In 4 minutes, it's going to be at 2350. So let me advance it 4 minutes. So in 4 minutes, the moon is just cusping the DSC, right? It's not quite on it. It's 24:47, and you can tell what the DSC is by looking at the ASC because they're mirrors of each other over the plane. And so um, the ASC is 24:03, so that means the DSC is also 24:03. So 24 degrees in 3 minutes. And then, yeah, so if it starts at 15 minutes after, which is what it tends to be, then the chart is pretty different from before. Now the moon is below the DSC, so this is something I'm still working out. Um, I'm going to start by assigning it the time of the actual puck drop. Um, I don't think it should matter too much. But so once you have your significators, you write those down so you remember them. You also want to know what the dispositor of the part of fortune is doing. So that means wherever the part of fortune is, the dispositor of it is the sign that it's in. Google dispositor to know what it means, but it's just wherever the part of fortune, this black circle with an X in it, um, wherever it is, it's going to have a planet that represents it as well. So in this case, we're going to not mess with it because it's still Venus, and Venus is the main significator. But if it was, say, that part of fortune was in um, Aquarius here, we would just forget that Aquarius represents the favorite and use it as the dispositor of the part of fortune to use it as determining outcomes. Um, so we're just going to ignore the dispositor here because we're not going to use it. Um, and then the next thing to note is the anticia. So the anticia is a reflection of the bodily. So this is the body of Mars right here. The bodily reflection of itself along the solstice line. So that's 0 degrees Cancer to 0 degrees Capricorn. So directly across. And so you can see here that Mars is reflected when you hit the anticia bar. You can see that Mars is reflected across this line in the exact same spot. So it's at Mars is at 25 degrees Gemini, and then reflected over the line, it's at four, like about almost 5 degrees Cancer. So that's its reflection. So um, you have the part of fortune here, and then the anticia of the part of fortune down here, right? So then it's a perfect reflection. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 signs away, and then down this center line here from Gemini and Cancer, it's reflected over that. So that's another thing to note, and that's called the anticia, and it's really important. So let's say this game does start at 15 after. So The moon isn't quite close enough to the DSC to be really important. Um, it's actually passing it. So um, you want things to be as close as possible to their like respective spots. So like if it was directly on it, that'd be really good for the ducks. And if it does start at like let's say we started at right at 7 on, right? So now it's actually getting closer to the DSC. So if they drop the puck right away, there's a good chance that there'd be a really good scoring opportunity, or the Ducks would score right when the puck dropped, like 8 minutes into the game. But because the puck drops around 15 after, which is why I think it we should or I should consider that more. Um, that's what I'm going to do. It's just experimental, but I think the decode will still work out because uh, so just that first stuff I told you, that's what you need to know. So you can write that down and how to assign what's happening. So write down the Lord, so the first house would be called Lord 1, and the 10th house is Lord 10, and then the 7th house is Lord 7, and the 4th house is Lord 4. So I write down for favorite, I put Lord 1, and then I put what planet it is, and Lord 10, what planet it is, and then Lord 7, what planet it is, and Lord 4, what planet it is. I write that down, and then I write down the dispositor of the part of fortune. In this case, it would be Venus, but because Venus is Lord 1, we can't use it. If it was up in Aries, you would use you would use Mars. But also because Mars is Lord 7, you can't use it. But if it was Saturn, if this part of fortune was in Aquarius or Capricorn, you would just ignore Lord 4 or Lord 10 and just use the dispositor of the part of fortune. Um, the part of fortune is a calculation based off the ascendant, the descendant, and the moon. Um, it's a mathematical calculation. I don't know how it came to be. I'm pretty sure it's probably a really cool story of how they figured that out. Um, but it works really well. So looking at this game here, I would say that it still looks like a good thing for the Lightning because let's put it to 15 after, which is where I think we should start it from. Okay, so the moon is past the DSC, so it's not going to affect it too much. And then we have Venus is still going to be the Lord 1, the main significator for the favorite. And Mars is still the same for the dog. And then Leo and Saturn, it's still the same. So, sorry, the Sun and Saturn, not Leo. So the moon is like the main thing, right? So what is the moon doing right now? It's it's not doing anything like visually that I can see. So if it's going to aspect one of the main significators, this is how you can find it. You click aspects, and then it says Moon trine Jupiter, 5 degrees 11 minutes, Moon square Saturn, separating. So what you want is applying, and I think if it doesn't say separating, it's actually applying. So it's applying to Jupiter and Mars. Jupiter we're not concerned with, Mars we are, but because it's so far away, 8 degrees, it takes too long to get there. The game is only 3 hours. So if you click the anticia, you can see here that the moon is applying to Venus. See, see the anticia of Venus, right? That's right there. And Venus is representing the favorite. And then you can go down here and find the exact points that Venus is. So it says dodeca catamoria or anticia. I'm not sure about this dodeca thing. I'm still like learning about that. But this is the anticia, so you can find the actual degrees if you're wondering if it's applying or separating. So we'll go back to the top. So the moon is at 24 degrees and 53 minutes at the start of the game. And then Venus is at 25 degrees and 16 minutes. And so the game is only going to be around 3 hours, 3 hours and 30 minutes long, 3 hours long. So the moon is going to move enough to actually apply to Venus. And usually, whatever the moon applies to is the team that wins. So in this case, Venus is the favorite, so the Lightning. And then for scoring patterns, uh, it's what happens with this part of fortune here and the significators and the moon and the anticia of the moon. So like see here, this is the anticia of the part of fortune. When this reaches the IC, that's like a rush of energy for the favorite or for the dog, sorry, because the dog is the fourth house. Um, and then the North Node, when it conjuncts this part of fortune here, that should be good for the favorite. So maybe the favorite scores first. If astrology is playing, like there is other games going on, and this is the only one with the ascendant of Venus. And I'm not tracking the scoring plays very well for hockey yet. Like I've started compiling them, and they should be similar to baseball. But let's see if I can determine a scoring play here. So I'm just going to jump it ahead. Maybe I'll jump it to 30 after. So it's getting closer, and then so it's 4, 8, 12. Let's jump ahead 12 minutes from 30 after. So we'll do 42. All right, so here's the part of fortune is conjunct with the North Node. So would the first period still be on? I think so. It's hard to say, but just watch to see if the Lightning score around this time. Um, is there anything else? Like, and then so say this is happening. You would want to see something else that could be Xing it out. I'm tracking this right here. This is called the part of spirit, and I see that Mars is close to it as well. So that might exit out. And then what else is going on right now? Oh yeah, and then the part of fortune here is on the IC. So there probably won't be a score here because it's like beneficial for both teams. Um, so maybe there won't be a score here, but that's just how I find them, right? So other things for scores is like trines, which is 120 degrees, but we won't get into that right now. But I hope that was clear. I think that the astrology shows Anaheim, sorry, that Tampa Bay winning here because the moon will be applying to Venus. So it's 25 degrees in 15 minutes. And right, it's at 25:09. So the last aspected planet by the moon should win in most of these games, unless there's something I'm missing. But I hope that clears up some stuff and maybe shows how this game might go. Okay, bye.